Hello and welcome back to the Rugby Pod. I'm Andy Rowan. Big Jim and Gertie are with me as usual. We'll be previewing a massive round 4 of the Guinness Six Nations, including catching up with record breaker Ben Youngs ahead of England's game against Ireland this weekend. So settle back, enjoy, and make sure you're subscribed on Spotify.
Pod.
Rugby Pod.
How's your week been, lads?
Good. Great. Week or weekend? What do you want?
Hit me with the exciting stuff.
Well, I drove to West Wales, which I thought was 5 hours from Edinburgh. When I got in the car, I realised it was about 9. So,
what are you doing?
I know what you're thinking. Why? Well, 4 kids locked up for 2 years. That's why. So, my point being, for the millions of you who would have watched me, Goody, I know you watched it, Andy Rowe. I know you absolutely love the URC. I was commentating on the big one, Scarlets versus the Glasgow Warriors, and.
Yeah.
You talk about commitment to the cause. I'm a committed human being. I'm a committed man on all fronts. As a family man, as a podcaster, and also as a commentator for Premier Sports. I'm that committed that I left my house on Friday and I got back Sunday to commentate on Scarlets Glasgow. That's how much I love Ruggers, and that's how much I'm committed to the cause. And it was all right for the first couple of hours. I had a few funny feelings in my bum as well on the way down, which Goody can get into, which I weren't sure. I thought it was just a heated seat. Thought something was happening. I thought too much cycling, wasn't sure. And I went and did my very best. And for those of you who've driven the long drive from Edinburgh to West Wales,
not many.
More so, yeah, I'm sure you haven't. No, I'm sure you haven't. I'm sure the Range Rover has not graced the roads of countryside and black ice, is what I'm saying. On Saturday night, I said to Beck, I said, I'm driving home. He's coming home. She said, what do you mean? I says, I ain't staying in West Wales. I'm getting back in the car. I don't want to say what car it is, but it's got a B&M and W in it. And I'm comfortable. I'm driving back up the road. And she said, are you going to do it? I said, yeah, 8 hours, let's do it. And I'm doing the back roads of West Wales and going up past Snowdonia and all that. I don't know why it's taking me that way and across. And literally, my head's hanging out the window, Ace Ventura style. It's about -4. And I've stopped off in Preston, which is only good for grasshoppers. And I've had to stay in a 2-star travel lodge. And I folded through the door on Sunday about midday. Absolutely bollocks. So it's not all rock and roll. For those of you who follow me, and most of you are in Indonesia, yeah, it ain't rock and roll, but that's showbiz sometimes. And we've got ourselves to such a level where we're comfortable at home doing it on Zoom. There's not been a lot of travel. And I don't know who to speak to, but they need to put on some flights from Scotland to Wales again. I don't know why. We're united on many fronts. Wear masks longer than England. We're united on many fronts.
Oh, don't get political, Jim.
Well, I'm not. It's a fact. It's a fact. Because when I got over to Scotland, I had to put my mask on. When I got to Wales, I had to put my mask on. But when I was driving through England, I didn't need to wear a mask. I was using a mask as a flannel. So it was an interesting few days, cultured few days. I went through 3 countries and came away with nothing but I'm a hard worker and some cream.
Well, we'll come on to the cream in a minute, Jim, but I'm kind of interested by it. We all know that you are horrific at admin, right? But you understand when you're working, where you're working, yet you never plan ahead. So I'm trying to think, and I was just looking down at my phone, and I just put in Edinburgh to Llanelli in the old Google Maps, and it comes up as 8 hours and 15 minutes in the car. At what point do you think, do you know what's a hell of an idea? You could fly from Edinburgh to Heathrow and then drive across. You could fly from Edinburgh to Bristol's, as you did for the live show last week. Who's thinking 8 hours plus in a car is a good idea? Because then things go wrong, don't they, Jim? You phone me up, and he phoned me probably 3 hours into the journey on Friday. He said, what are you doing? I said, well, I'm just about to go and pick the kids up from school, take them out for the afternoon. What are you doing? It's like, I'm 3 hours into the drive from Edinburgh down to Llanelli, but I'm going to stop off down the way and see Ravo's arm down near Gloucester. I was like, okay, cool. He said, Jim says to me, kid, have you ever had a pile? I said, you what? He said, have you ever had a pile? I said, no, James, I haven't. Why? He said, well, I've got this grape hanging out my arse. I said,
no, let's say my granddad. My granddad's got this grape hanging out his arse. Let's say that.
Oh, yeah, to say your granddad, yeah. The grape hanging out his arse. I said, well, that generally means it's a pile, Jim. Try and push it back up there. He said, well, what do you do? I said, well, there's a number of things you can do. And I have had a mate that had piles before.
A mate, a mate.
mate.
Genuinely, I'll name him
Genuinely,
Ollie Horner. Yeah, Ollie Horner, mate of mine. I'll name him. Went to school with him, and he was known as Ollie the Pile. And basically, going back many years ago,
Ollie the Pile.
Many years ago, he had piles, and he was telling us about it. And he got this cream called Anusol. And Anusol, if you want to come and do a deal with the podcast, here's some free advertising. I said to Jim Hamilton, you need to get some Anusol on it, mate. Well, that's what you do. You put some soothing cream on it called Anusol, and try and push him back in. And off he went. He said, mate, I'm Jim Hamilton. I can't walk into any shop here, 6'8", in heels, and say I need some Anusol because I've got piles. So he said, can you get it on Amazon? So I had a quick look on Amazon while on the phone. I said, yes, you can, Jim. 10 minutes later, his pain was that bad. He sent me a picture of a packet of Anusol that he'd gone into a pharmacy to buy it from. So
former granddad.
For your granddad, yeah. So, mate, that's what 8 hours in the car does for you. It gives you piles, and that's a lesson there. Get your admin sorted. Get your travel sorted. Get your admin. Fly to Bristol's. Fly anywhere, but drive 8 hours. But on the flip side of that, very wise. Kid avoidance all weekend. Well played, Jim Hamilton, because you left on Friday. You come home Sunday, and you're happy now.
Well, you say happy. I think the moral of the story is don't cycle before you drive. I don't know whether that is a thing in medical literature, but that is, if I was to write a medical literature journal or piece or article, it would be titled, Don't Cycle Before You Drive because your granddad might get piles.
You all right? Otherwise, Goody, you haven't had any health issues?
Absolutely not, no. It's the calm before the storm this weekend for me. So we're obviously heading over to Dublin on Wednesday. We're in Belfast on Thursday. Friday, I've got a dinner that I'm speaking at, and then Saturday I'm at Twickenham all day. So there's going to be copious amounts of Guinness and blackcurrant drank this week. So this weekend was a quiet family time. I thought I'm probably not going to see the kids and the missus from when I get on that plane Wednesday morning till Sunday. And actually Sunday I'm doing BT Sport. I'm going to see the kids for a week probably. So I spent Friday, Saturday, Sunday with the family, with the children. Had a monster headache by Sunday night because the kids were screaming. I was so happy to see our nanny walk in the house this morning at 7 o'clock as she did. And it was a quiet weekend. But the excitement is building, salivating for a Guinness and blackcurrant over in Dublin on Wednesday.
There you go, Goody salivating, and Jim's ordered his suppositories for the Dublin and Belfast shows.
Why would I? It's my granddad. It's my granddad.
For your granddad, then. Both those are sold out, and then we're in Manchester and Liverpool the week after, and there are a few tickets left for those. So make sure you check out eventbrite.co.uk and search for the Rugby Pod to get along to those. They'll be both epic nights. We'll come on to the Six Nations and Premiership shortly, but it was announced over the past week that Doncaster and Ealing have failed to meet the minimum standards criteria for promotion. So there'll be no promotion to the Premiership this season. What do you guys make of that?
All drama, again, isn't it? And we like a bit of drama, not loads, but this is something that's been in the background for a while, hasn't it? And with the Premiership ring fencing for whatever reason, because of COVID, because Saracens are back in, which is great to see. The question then looks to the Championship, doesn't it, about who's going to come up? And everything's been about Ealing. Ealing have got the budget, they've got the players. But as we know, the big one have come good this season. Donny. Hoi, hoi, hoi. And the conversation then comes round. What happens if Doncaster or Ealing win the league? Do they get to come up? And that question has been asked and absolutely kiboshed. And chatting to my mate Ben Gulliver, who played in the Championship for 15 years, the coalface of rugby, right? Let's get it right here. Grossly underpaid. They're not looked after in terms of personal development, off the pitch, medical care. They're not. They're completely and grossly underfunded. So it's all about getting into the Prem. And that door has been closed. For whatever reason, and Goody, I know that you'll talk through the reasons why, the size of the stadium, funding in the background, which Ealing have. I'm not too sure about Donny, hoi, hoi, hoi. But it's one of them things. I was happy to see it closed off just to settle the ship. But now, what is the point? My point is, what is the point in playing in the Championship then? Why would you do it? You know?
Yeah, I mean, I understand that. And I get, why would you play in the Championship? Because you love playing rugby and you get to a level. I think everyone plays rugby to try and get to a level where they can max out their potential. So some players are only Championship players, right? That's the level, that's their best level they can get to. Other players get picked up from the Championship up to the Premiership and all this stuff. Now, I'm a massive advocate of promotion and relegation. I think it needs to be in there. You look at the bottom of the league now, you've got Worcester, bottom of the league again. Bath have just overtaken them, so they're in 12th, and then you've got Newcastle in 11th. And then you've got Bristol, who finished top of the Premiership last year, in 10th. But the bottom three, and it happens year in, year out, the jeopardy around the Premiership trapdoor and someone coming up and someone going down keeps those games exciting. I'm looking at some of Worcester's performances, and it's an old club of mine. They're playing London Irish at the weekend. There was hardly anything in it. Like the effort, you question the desire of the players because they know, you know what, if we lose, does it really matter in terms of we ain't going up anywhere in the league? So, that's where I think you end up with a load of dead rubber games. Now, from Ealing and Donny's point of view, you look at the RFU and the decision that's been made alongside Premier Rugby around the criteria for the stadium. And people have kind of jumped on this. It's the criteria for the stadium is you need over a 10,000 seat stadium to play in the Premiership to meet those regulations. And people are like, yeah, but Sale only gets 6,000 and so do other teams. Newcastle, they only get 7,000 some games. It's not the facts of how many people go and watch the clubs. It's the fact of health and safety, apparently, around if you get large crowds and how you could get 10,000 into a 5,000 seat stadium. So that's what it's kind of masqueraded as, the reasoning behind it, all around health and safety. And, having the need and requirement for a 10,000 seat stadium in case 10,000 fans want to come. So it's not necessarily through the other clubs not having as many fans watching their games, but I'm stuck between a rock and a hard place here because I'm desperate for promotion and relegation to be involved in the Premiership because I think you need it to keep the competition interesting all the way through. The flip side of it is 50 million quid, I reckon. 50 million quid's worth of investment from Ealing and Doncaster and Cornish Pirates to get your stadium up to scratch, B, all the logistics around your club, professionalise absolutely everything, all the medical care that needs to go into it, the squad depth, the squad talent. You're talking the difference now. I'm not talking for one season. I'm talking as a project. I'm saying the disparity between a Premiership club and what the Championship are right now in terms of all the resources, all the logistics of everything. The difference is around 50 million quid. And who has got that sort of money just to go, here you go, there's 50 million quid. Spend it as you wish and make sure you stay in the Premiership. Because the big story, obviously, is Exeter. They came from all the way up through the leagues, win the Championship. They've now made a massive success of it. And I believe there should be a promotion and relegation. The issue for the other clubs is you look at a London Welsh, you look at a Richmond, Rotherham, another one. Because of that disparity, and because an owner puts as much as he can in, and then it all gets hoiked out when they realise that actually we haven't got enough funds. It's going to take a hell of a lot more to even be competitive. Then that club ends up going to liquidation, falls all the way down the leagues, and has to fight its way all the way back up. So the system is the issue. You've got to grow the game, and you've got to have some pathway, I think. But it's just a really tough one because what the pandemic has also highlighted is the big differences between and the disparity between Premiership and Championship clubs. And lo and behold, the RFU who are making this decision and the RFU who run the leagues have cut the funding to the Championship clubs as well. So they're making it even harder for them. And it's just, I think there needs to be promotion and relegation. How you go around it is very difficult now because of the disparity between even Worcester, who are bottom of the league. Look at their infrastructure. Look what they've got. They've got British and Irish Lions. They've got a fantastic stadium, fantastic facilities to use in the week. Compare that to Ealing or Doncaster and where they're at now. It's poles apart, isn't it? And that's the difficulty whereby we want to see this promotion relegation, but at the minute it's just not feasible.
I want to just rephrase the point around why would you play in the Championship? And Goody touched on it there because it's obviously a fantastic competition. To get to that level is extremely good. My point being, if you are a commercial sponsor, why would you invest? The road to where? The road to nowhere now. If you're a Green King, which was the front and main sponsor for the Championship, the games aren't on TV now either. So that's what I mean. And Goody touched on it there. It's almost sad. Most of us just bury our heads in the sand around it. But I can tell you this from having mates who've played all their career, all their lives in the Championship and playing a season at Nottingham myself. And we've seen a lot of the players come through the Championship as well. It is the absolute coalface. They are the lads that are grafting, because most of them can't work. And I know there's talk around the Cornish Pirates going part-time now because, mate, if you're getting paid 25 grand, 30 grand, you're on close to minimum salary to be a professional rugby player. So you've got to try and balance that out with work and study and all these different things that come through. So, I mean, again, I'm going to say, I said it a few times during the pandemic. We're obviously through that now. Who knows?
Well, let's have a chat now about the return of the Six Nations this weekend. Jim, you guys worried about Scotland's trip to Rome at all?
It's the wooden spoon decider, James. Welcome back. Welcome back.
I always thought the wooden spoon was like losing all your games, but is it actually finishing bottom? Is it? Is that what
Just
we're thinking?
Yeah, you've got it. You've won it a few times, haven't you, Sam?
I think I've only won it twice, maybe once,
maybe 3 times.
Is that the stats shows 3 times? Is it?
I've got stats that I get out at the live show, Jim. I don't think I can bring them to the masses on the podcast around your international career. I'll save those.
I prefer you didn't.
Yeah, there's millions of people that listen to this podcast. I don't want it out into the full public domain how bad you were for Scotland. But one day, if I need to use that ammunition, I will.
I wouldn't say I'm that worried. No, and I feel horrible saying that. But from an Italian perspective, these are their easiest 2 games. Easiest in terms of easier. They're not easy games, are they? But when Italy would have looked at their fixtures, it would have been about the last 2 games. Week off, as we know that they've just had. Benetton had a good performance against Leinster.
Why are you being horrible?
I'm not. I just want to put them on the back foot a little bit. I'm only being sarcastic, as we know. They had 60, 70, round up to 100 points put on them at the weekend at home. But from an Italian perspective, Scotland and Wales, who you could perceive as 2 of the weaker teams when you look at France and Ireland, you throw England into the mix, but we know that they beat them comfortably. So,
come on, Jim.
I know. But this is the thing, we've spoken about it in the last couple of weeks. The worry is now not that Italy will beat Scotland, but the fact that people are talking about us in that vein. Are you worried about Italy? And we laugh about it and we joke about it, but from an Italian standpoint, you're throwing everything into this, aren't you? Because you're looking at the lay of the land, and historically, I know the Italian team's changed, so has the Scotland team, obviously, but in years gone by where Italy could potentially beat Scotland on their day.
And did.
I just can't. And did a couple
when Jim
of times.
Hamilton played. When Jim Hamilton played.
They also beat France and South Africa on their day as well, Andrew. So
they did.
I'm looking at it and I can't see how Italy are going to win. I can't see how they're going to win. But the big talking point in Scotland is, does Finn Russell start? Something that we went through last week. You look at the squad now. Adam Hastings has been called up, the Gloucester 10. Ross Thompson, the young lad at Glasgow. Why have they been called up now? I don't know.
Oh, what are you saying, James?
I don't know. Blair Kinghorn carved up for Edinburgh on Friday night against Connacht. You know, they put 50-odd points on Connacht, who went 8-0 up at the beginning of the game in the URC. I wouldn't drop Finn. That isn't because Finn's a mate. I just don't think Scotland are in a position to do that. They've got to find a way, and again, I'm going over old ground here, but for the 1 million new listeners that we've probably got this week, you know, we did speak about it, didn't we? And said, can you see them putting them on the bench and starting a Blair Kinghorn? The narrative around Blair Kinghorn's been growing, plays well on Friday, like I just said. But it's Italy, but it's also an Italian team that probably think this is their best chance of getting a win. So can you move a Finn Russell out of that? I don't think you can. I don't think we're in a position as a country to do that. Johnny Gray's back in the mix. He's going to add, obviously, what he's going to add in terms of experience and physicality and all these things. But how does it look for Scotland? It obviously isn't the game of the weekend, as we know, but it's a must-win game. And by me saying that line makes it sound like Scotland have gone back. And we'll assess the Six Nations after, I'm sure, because we've got Ireland the week after. But I'd like to think that we'll win, and we'll win comfortably.
Yeah, I agree. I think they will. I think when you look at it, and people are jumping on Scotland a little bit for different reasons. Now, you beat England in the first game. There's your cup final. This is Italy's cup final, the equivalent of your cup final against England this weekend. Against Wales, could have, should have won it, right? Finn Russell makes the error, gets sin-binned. Probably still should have won it, but you haven't won there for 20 years in the Six Nations, have you? So actually, to lose that game by a point or whatever it was, wasn't a surprise. France, they were just a different gravy on the day, weren't they? So it's not that I don't think Scotland are that far off, and I'm being nice now and genuine around it. Like, I would love to sit here and go, Italy have got a major chance of beating Scotland. They haven't, I don't think. Scotland have got way too much quality throughout the squad, when you look at it on paper, but there's that little bit of doubt. And it's all about Gregor this weekend around what he does with Finn. People look at what Ireland did and they put Sexton on the bench, but he was coming back from an injury, so it's very different. There's obviously the historical stuff around Gregor and Finn and how he had too many beers one night and he didn't pick him. And then obviously Finn worked his way back into the team and had great success. There's a positive vibe about it. If you drop Finn now, you go back to square one with it. So you have a stern word with Finn and say, listen, you haven't been tip-top in all parts of your game. You've had a bit of a sort of slump in 2 or 3 bits of discipline. Your work rate and all that stuff. Go back to being Finn Russell and you'll win by 40 points. And that's generally what I think. He's got to go and back his man now. And people will call for Adam Hastings to be involved, get him on the bench and give him 20 minutes. But, you've got to give Finn the keys and say, listen, get yourself back on the horse. Let's put a convincing performance in, because all of a sudden, if you've got Finn on the bench or you drop Finn, it gets a bit tough for Scotland because their main man isn't playing and they're looking around. It's Blair Kinghorn at 10, who's a good player, or Adam Hastings, who hasn't been involved in any training up to this point. You start thinking as a player, shit, whose voice you listen to. Then another voice joins in. Hoggy tries to run it from the back, or starts calling plays or whatever. You just don't know the balance of the team. So if you're Gregor Townsend, you put 40 on Italy by backing Finn, being confident, and it shouldn't ever be a question around can Italy win, because Scotland should have way too much quality. I hope Italy do win.
Well, let's look at Friday night then. Principality Stadium. Can you see Wales upsetting France? Have they got any chance here?
Yes. In reality, it's 2 teams. I like what Sean Edwards has said already. He's come out, he's done an interview about, it's always going to be about Sean Edwards, right? Going back to Wales, the impact he's had on France. But he's like, Wales are champions. So we're going into the den, a fucking champion team in Six Nations right now. So that's the toughest game. So I can't wait to watch it. Friday night, the atmosphere will be absolutely buzzing. And do you know what? Wales, off the back of their second half performance against England a couple of weeks ago, where if they can start well, they've definitely got a chance. You hope to catch the French cold. You're always kind of expecting, and it's probably gone now, but the Frenchness to come out at some point where there is a cock up, there is something that goes wrong for them, and how do they react off it?
I love that. I know what you mean. Yeah, you're right.
But historically, it's always happened at some point, hasn't it? It might not happen in the most important game, but at some point, the French have got that in them. I can't believe they've got it out of their system completely, because the bottom line is they're still French, right? And they will have that ability to be the best team in the world, but also to be a team that can make, calamitous errors. So there is a chance for Wales. They're at home. The atmosphere is going to be unbelievable. Friday night, but can I see it happening? If France rock up and they're anywhere near what they were in Scotland in terms of how clinical they were, yeah, they got the rub the green with the odd thing and the bounce of the ball, but they were just on a different planet at times, weren't they? And Scotland created chances, so Wales will be able to create chances against them. But with Sean's defence now and how physical they are, the size of some of those boys is where Wales might really come a cropper. And England couldn't impose any physicality on them, really. But yeah, there's a chance, and I hope that Wales do beat them, because that makes the Six Nations even more exciting games the last weekend for any team, really.
I think when I look at Wales, and again, I've obviously changed completely on everything that I've said, having spent some time with Scott Grinnell and watching them beat Scotland, but also how well they played against England in that second half. And I think that will be the thing, is they need to start. You need to start quick against France. And I think with the emotion, how classy is it going to be? We've spoken before about the Principality Stadium, best atmosphere, best stadium in the world. Friday night under the lights. It almost seems like, from a Welsh perspective, if there was a time to beat France and to change the course of the direction of your team, a team like Sean Edwards said are the champions, are the fucking champions of the Six Nations at the minute. But they're not that far away, and they're not playing as well as they could or they should or people expect. But they're not that far away. If it wasn't for a decision around the line out, and we don't know how that game would have unfolded, and we've gone through it loads around some of the decisions that went against them at Twickenham, they could have beaten England, and they beat Scotland, and we're one of the best teams in the world as well.
Dreaming.
I know. But I think from a Welsh perspective, the way that Wales play and the way that France play suit the way that Wales want to play. Defence is what I'm saying. Defence and slowing the ball down at the breakdown. Now, they're one of the best teams. I go back 2 years, the World Cup against South Africa. Similar profile in terms of the size of human beings. That is how Wales want to play. They want it to be Route 1 China, because for whatever reason, they're built like that to be able to deal with it. So I think they've got a chance, like Goody says. I'm not waiting for a red card, which we've seen before, Hawas against Scotland, Vaha Mahina at the World Cup as well. But you're just waiting for something, aren't you? That's what it does feel like. And I think Friday night under the lights, I can't wait. I think it adds a different perspective to the tournament. And again, like Goody said, it's the crossroads now for the tournament to see who's going to win it. And this weekend is going to open up the doors to France, England and Ireland, Wales, and obviously the wooden spoon and all that bollocks that we've just spoken about.
Well, let's talk about that England-Ireland match, the big one at Twickenham. Where's this one going to be won and lost?
England need to be better than they've been for as long as I can remember. They need to be at the level in which they beat New Zealand at the World Cup, where they absolutely slippered them. And we need to see something that we've not seen from this Six Nations in terms of physicality, in terms of game line, defensively dealing with the Ireland forwards. They've got to be at their very best. And what I'm excited about this game, and again, without trying to steal the headline that everyone's going to say, is around Marcus Smith. Now, it's been an easy-ish build-up. I know England lost against Scotland in the first game, but it was a close-ish game.
We were ahead when Marcus Smith got substituted, just saying.
There you go. And you say that, didn't you tell us? Didn't you
I did, James. I did.
I know. But you look now, and I say it's been a bit bitty because we've had a couple of weeks off. We're going into the two biggest games of England's Six Nations because it's the two best teams, right? So everything's building up to these last couple of weeks. And Eddie Jones knows that. And my point being, I can't wait to see Marcus Smith, whether or not he can play at this level against an Ireland team where it's going to be really difficult, right? In terms of the speed of ball, in terms of the physicality, in terms of forwards and backs running down his channel and everything that he's going to deal with. And he's going to be up against Sexton. And everything, it's the master and the apprentice scenario coming out of it. And even with the way that England have played, I think they've got a chance. I think it's going to be a lot closer. I know Eddie Jones has said that Ireland are miles favourites. I just think that England have got a real shot, and it's obviously at Twickenham as well.
Yeah, I think the thing that you mentioned there around Marcus Smith, completely agree. Can't wait to see how he deals with everything that's put in front of him. He has dealt pretty well with something similar when we played South Africa, because we shouldn't really have had a chance of beating South Africa the way our scrum was and how dominant they should have been. But he found it within himself, to get the ball by the horns and go after it and start attacking towards the end, and then kicks the penalty to win it. So, yeah, I mean, listen, Ireland are, to pick up an Eddie Jones analogy, he goes, yeah, mate, they're a well-oiled machine. Like, they really are. The way they play, their handling, their interaction around, the pod system that they play, balls out the back to Sexton, then the lines at the backs run off that. They've got power now as well. Caleb Doris, we absolutely love him on this podcast. The back row selection is really interesting. Van der Fleer's on fire. There's so much quality in that Ireland squad now. And you go back 2 or 3 years, we used to physically dominate Ireland, and all of a sudden, last year in the Six Nations, it flipped. They absolutely physically dominated us. And you look at what they've done since then as well. They are a really well-oiled machine. Now you look at England. England are a decent machine, but our oil hasn't been put in properly at the minute. I think that's Eddie Jones's attacking problems. So there's a bit of a drip feed of the oil going in, but it's just not kind of lubricating the whole team enough in terms of the way Eddie Jones is wanting us to attack. So, but we have got big players, big performances, and the Twickenham factor is massive. I remember Ireland beat England at Twickenham a few years back to win the Six Nations and the Grand Slam. I think but the weather was snowing and stuff like that. But dry day at Twickenham, historically we've done exceptionally well against Ireland there. So let's hope it's a dry day. There's a big question around Dombrand and his COVID. So how much training does he get within the team this week?
How big of a blow is Dombrand? Because I know you guys have got plenty at number.
Yeah,
8. But
listen, Dombrand was outstanding against Wales, wasn't he? and probably England's, alongside Marrow, England's best forward, and Ellis Genge played pretty well. I think Sam Simmons is there. If Don Brandt's not fit, or he's not done enough training reps with the boys, so he's on the bench, that's not a massive issue. You could lose bigger players. So if Marrow was out, that would be a massive loss to us. If Carl Sinclair was out, I think that would be a big loss to us. Obviously we've lost Karen Dickey, but Jamie George will come in and start. So there's a hell of a lot of experience there. It'd be interesting to see which way Eddie Jones goes with the selection of second row and back row. I know Underhill's been brought into the squad. I don't know what it is with Eddie Jones. I've lined Sam Underhill up for a Q&A at Twickenham on Saturday, and then he's picked him. Same with Manu last week. Just don't get him injured, or don't pick him, Eddie, because he must know where my Q&As are and who I'm asking to come to them, because then he just picks them for the squad and fucks me over with my selection. So, listen, Ireland are...
Do we know if Manu's back, Goody? Do we know if Manu's going to be fit? He's not.
No, he's not.
Is that out? What have they said?
He's out. Yeah, he's... I messaged Manu. He's like, at least a few weeks.
Fucking hell.
Yeah.
Sorry,
Hammer. This is Hammer. So listen, Ireland are... You look at them now, and is it the classic Ireland peaking between the World Cups, and then, actually, let's not even talk about World Cup. Let's talk about the here and now. Ireland, like Eddie Jones says, look a proper complete outfit as it stands. And they've got some selection issues, who they pick, and their selection issues are very different to a lot of teams. They've got so many players on great form. Look at the centres. Are they going to go Aki and Ringrose? Are they going to go Henshaw in there? Hume at Ulster's been playing really well. I know he came off the bench against Italy and did pretty well. So, big decisions for them. James Lowe's back in the mix, but Matt Hanson's gone well. Mike Lowry. So they've got issues with who do we pick, because everyone's going well. And that's the sign of a team that is playing exceptionally well and is comfortable in their own skin. Yeah, they've got a couple of injuries. Porter is out injured, which I think is pretty big. But then you've got Cian Healy probably to start, or Kilcoyne from Munster. But Kelleher's a big one for me at hooker, him being out injured. He's a fantastic player. Sheehan, I think, will start. But yes, it's a hell of a ding-dong, isn't it? You could make a case for both teams to win it, but on form, you have to say Ireland are favourites.
Well, we can have a chat now with a man who'll be involved in that game, man, who broke Jason Leonard's Test cap record in the last round. England's scrum half Ben Youngs joins us now. How are you, mate?
Youngsy, how are you, mate? Good to see you.
I'm very well, Jimbo. Yeah, likewise. Good to see you and Goody.
Nice. We had some kind words to say about you last week. Not that you would have listened to it, but it was going viral on social about our interactions of you as a young lad and me dealing with some of your fluid and liquid when you were a 16, 17-year-old lad. You've come a long way.
I saw it, Jim. The bus back, mate, from, yes. Thank you. Good memories.
So those memories, and for people that listened last week, Jim told the story of Jim trying to throw the bag of sick out. Who was wearing the sick? Who wore it all? Who wore the most on that bus that day?
Well, once I met Jimbo very kindly was just checking if the young lad was all right. So he come over and I've been sick, and then he opened up the roof bit of the bus, and he went to lob it. Of course, we're going down the motorway, so that just ended up turning straight back on top of you, Jim, didn't it? But I remember the damages on that bus was awful. And then when we arrived back at the stadium, we had to get off the bus. But as you stepped off, I think you remember those polos that had to be completely ripped off, and then we could proceed for the rest of the evening.
And look at the foundations. Younger, look at the foundations that it's put in.
Without that experience, mate, I wouldn't be here now. I know that much. I wouldn't be.
Yeah, amazing, mate. It's great to speak to you. And obviously, we've been very positive around everything you've done in the game and over the last few weeks. Breaking the record last week, they're coming off the bench. I was disappointed you didn't start. I want you to get a couple of standing ovations, one when you ran out. I know you did run out just after Carl Sinclair, but talk me through the emotions, because it's been a really tough time for you as a family as well. But what an amazing achievement.
Cheers, Goody. Yeah, no, it has, mate. And it was a bit surreal. Like, I think, I never went out to go beat a record as such. Like, you kind of get your first cap, and then, I don't know, when I got close to 50, you kind of think, oh, okay, it's only a few games away. I might get there. You get there, and then similar with the 100th, I got quite close to it, and I was like, okay, right, that's achievable. I really want to do that now. And again, with this one, mate, like, I kind of come into the Six Nations, and then you get close and you think, okay, it's within touching distance, and now I want to do it, but it's not something I ever set out to do. So But to get the moment was awesome. I think given, you know, the 100th cap for me was a real big moment, but we ran out to an empty stadium in Italy. You know, no family, no one. And it was kind of, I just, you know, I didn't even care about having no fans. It's just the fact that I just couldn't have like my family there. And, you know, this time around, just being able to full stadium at Twickenham and get that moment and knowing that everyone's in the crowd that I wanted to be. You know, have all those people there that I needed, you know, that I wanted, that have supported me since day dot. That was special, mate. That was special. I enjoyed that. Enjoyed it, certainly.
Yeah, look, class. Youngsy, not that we want to look too far back because you've got a game in front of you and obviously you've got a few more caps, I'm sure, to add and hopefully a World Cup going forward. But just looking back on the snapshot of your career, when it's all said and done, it hasn't all been glory, has it? You started at Leicester when we were successful back in the day. You're a young lad coming through, carving up. You've been on British and Irish Lions tours, but you've also seen Leicester struggle. You've been a part of an England team that have won things and struggled as well. How important are these things into the mix that kind of shape who you are and shape the career that you've had so far?
Definitely, Jimbo. Like it's never been plain sailing, and you know, it makes you value the times that are good, and it kind of shapes you when the times are tough. It kind of shapes you to be a bit more robust, a bit more resilient as a person, as a player. You know, I remember when obviously my first when we went to where did we go to? Which I remember I didn't remember. Did I remember you, Goody? And you're watching 24 all the time on your laptop.
Yeah.
With a bag of Rebels.
M&M's.
Right. But like that, you know, that Leicester from when I first started. Obviously, I was really fortunate to be around amazing players that have played for England, achieved loads, and were used to winning. And that kind of, as a youngster, you're thrown into that environment. You kind of see that shapes you alone because you see what these players are doing. They're used to winning and this standard and this commitment at winning trophies, and they should win trophies. And as a youngster, you're just absorbing all this like edge to training, this like relentless drive to be successful. And I was just a youngster just sponging on all that. And then kind of then when that period at Leicester then finished, it kind of, those bits kind of don't go. They're the bits you fall back on. Like you understand the value of hard work, you understand the value of like being resilient and all that. And it's tough. And yeah, like you say, it hasn't all been plain sailing. And you know, there was a period at Leicester, certainly recently, where you know we could have easily got relegated. We could have easily gone down. You know, and I'd have been a part of that. And that was tough because it's a club that you love dearly, and you can't. You're watching it sort of spiral a little bit, going down, and you're almost part of the reason for its demise. You know, playing scrum half, you're a big key in that clog, and you're not getting results, you're not performing, you're not where you want to be, and that was tough. But I feel like, you know, we've come through the other side at the club, certainly, and internationally, again, we've had moments. You know, 2015 World Cup, we've had times where, you know, it's been really, really difficult, but equally, we've had some brilliant moments. So I guess it makes you value the good moments.
Yeah, I mean, to all England and Leicester fans, you're welcome, basically, because the reason I left Leicester, because I could see greatness coming through. 2007, 2008, I could see an amazing scrum half coming through. The problem was he had me to play with at 10 to start off with, so I had to leave. To let you spread your wings. But I want to talk to you about your first cap, because your first cap came against Scotland, and it's Jim Hamilton's greatest ever achievement for Scotland. You make your debut. It was a game that was drawn. I expected you to win by about 35, 40 points, but the only time Jim's ever come close to beating England. Do you remember that day?
16-all, yeah. I do remember that day. And Ugo obviously went down, and then the cart that came on to take him off ran out of battery. So then it was bizarre. They had to then push off the buggy, so it was a bit weird. But yeah, I do, Goody, and I come on the wing, and by that point, in a way, coming on the wing kind of took all the pressure off because I wasn't expected to. You know, I never played on the wing, so let alone played an international game on the wing. So my kind of took the pressure. And I just remember Mike Ford sort of being up and down the touchline, screaming at me, trying to get me in position and all that. But luckily, there was some old heads out there that kind of put me in the right position, and I didn't have to do too much for 10 minutes, which was all right.
I pushed the buggy off as well, just because that's what a vice captain does. Just looking after the opposition as well. Yeah, I think it was a collision with Kelly Brown. Youngsy,
that's right.
Just your relationship with Eddie Jones as well, because it's important that a coach likes you, respects you, and Eddie clearly has that with you. Not the weekend because he didn't start you, but obviously he rates you. I say that in jest because you did get on and break the record. But how do you find that? How do you find that relationship with Eddie compared to maybe coaches gone by?
Yeah, look, I think with Eddie, like I've always been really clear about. He's been really clear to me what he wants from me and what he expects from me, and how I can complement the team in terms of what I can do. I think that relationship is one where his knowledge of the game is exceptional in terms of, you know, he really buy into about what we want to do, how we want to go about it, but then he empowers you as a halfback to go and take control of that, and go and run with that idea or that game plan as such. So for me, I've always felt very clear about what he wants from me and where I need to deliver for him, and I've enjoyed it. I think, you know, I played probably some of my best rugby under Eddie in terms of England wise, and I'm very, very grateful that given the adversity of 2015 to then he came in and 16 won a Grand Slam, 17 won the Six Nations, but we went on like 18 game in all those bits. I've got some real good memories, so I feel fortunate that I've had him as a coach during an England period.
Is he still giving you chocolates? Didn't he do? Was it sweets or chocolates that he gave you on the first time?
No. Yeah, that was the first meeting I had with him ever. So I turned up at Penny Hill and we got a text and they all said, go meet Eddie. I'd never met Eddie before, so I knocked on the door. Like lads were going in and out and whatever, and I knocked on. Come in. Oh, Benny, how are you? Come take a seat, mate. Oh, nice to meet you. Yeah. Chatting away, you know, at Leicester and bots and bobs, and you know, I've watched your games and X, Y, Z, and he was very complimentary. I thought, oh, this is going all right. You know, this is going all right. And he was like, what do you need to work on? And I was sort of listing a few things. He's like, no. And then he just chucked me a bag of sweets. He said, mate, you need to lose some weight. You need to stay off these. I said, okay. He goes, I want you at 88 kilos. So he said, I want you to be, you know, zip around a bit more. I want you to be able to zip around for a full 80, not 60, and stuff like that. And so he said, do you want to take the sweets with you? I said, no, I'm all good. He said, that's a great start, mate. And that was it, mate. Me done. So yeah, and then the next lad went in. So yeah.
So you drove to the shop to get some instead of taking them off Eddie, right?
Yeah, went down the local garage straight away. Comforty. Trying to work out if the meeting went well or not.
Yeah. Nice. I want to ask you about Marcus Smith, because you played with obviously Owen Farrell a hell of a lot at 9 and 10, and George Ford and various different 10s. Now Marcus Smith seems, from the outside, I don't know the guy, I've met his parents, but he seems like a breath of fresh air in terms of ability, in terms of understanding what his strengths are, how to bring others into the game. He looks unbelievable. Is it? How special is it to play with him?
Yeah, look, the first thing about Marcus, he's a real respectful, like grounded lad, and he's got a real lovely presence and a way about him. You know, the way he works, the way he conducts himself, the way he drives the team, but in a very sort of calming, sort of relaxed way. But I think, like you touched on, Goody, like that's all great, but actually, when you break down as a player, mate, he's been very, very exciting to watch, and I think he's just starting out. You know, you forget that he's only sort of come onto the international scene since the summer. You know, it's his first full season of doing it. We all know what he's done at Quins, but I think that one of his greatest gifts is the ability to take on people. You know, he's happy to get the ball out the back of forwards pods and go to the line and go, use his footwork, take on defenders, try and pick on guys that potentially are a little bit fatigued, and I love how he really wants to take on the line, and that creates more space for others, but you know, it creates a bit of excitement, doesn't it? He's quite unpredictable in terms of what he does. You know, for him, what he does is predictable to him, but unpredictable to others. If that makes sense, you know, we don't quite know what he's going to do, but he knows exactly what he's going to do and how he's trying to manipulate defenders. So, yeah, he's good, mate, and I think he's just touching the surface of what he's going to do.
Similar to when we started.
Exactly right, Goody. I was chucking you a paper bag in a hurricane, mate. You were just about catching it, and then
and I was running that line and snapping it out the air. Just, I love how we're putting ourselves close to Youngsy now that you're still doing it. Let's look forward then. Next couple of games, they are the biggest games. We'll say it. They're the two form teams coming up for England now. It's been a bit kind of bitty, the Six Nations, because there was two games. There was a game off and a game and then another week off. So we're now here from an England standpoint against the two best teams. Eddie Jones mentioned it. I just saw it flash up before your interview that he thinks Ireland are the form team in the world. I think that was the headline around it. We know that France are in that mix. How do you beat the Irish? Ben?
Yeah, look, they're definitely in good form. I think their autumn form was great, and they've carried that through. They've got a lot of cohesion. Like, a lot of those guys play regularly together at Leinster. That's something as an England team, whenever we come together, that you have to work on, because ultimately we all got different clubs and philosophies and all that, and come together where they're quite consistent in terms of how they get that. But this weekend is going to be a great challenge for us. I look at, there's certain games you play or you build up to in your career, and you've got to find a bit more as a team. And I think this week's one of those weeks. This is a huge game in terms of we've got to find a bit more, because if we don't, Ireland will fancy their chances and can cause a serious problem. So, this week is all a bit of an edge to training, a bit of extra, find a bit more, boys, because we need to be our absolute best. We need to find our best form to get the result of the weekend. And that bit of fear, that bit of apprehension, I guess, I believe is a good thing, and it kind of just focuses the mind a little bit. So we'll have to bring it on Saturday for sure.
And two guys that obviously you know pretty well from your time with England, Andy Farrell and Mike Catt, are going to have fairly big impacts on the team you're playing against this weekend. You're expecting any rabbits to be pulled out the hat by Catty in some various different moves?
Yeah, Catty's a smart guy. Like, I really enjoyed Catty when he was here at England, and look, their attack. They're moving the ball nicely. They've got quite a structured way of how they attack in terms of their pod systems and all that, but they move it nice. They've got good distributors, good people making decisions there. So, yeah, he'll be looking to exploit us without doubt, and he'll have a couple of, I'm sure, starter plays. A bit like Joe Schmidt was, there's always a couple of variations they do, subtleties. Obviously Paul O'Connor's there now doing the line out, and that's, that's a big area where they're strong as well. So, yeah, it makes for a bit of a tactical game, in terms of how that's done, trying to unpick their attack. Defense wise, we know that they're pretty aggressive. So, I think it makes for a great test match. And like I say, I think the good thing is for us, we know we've got to find a bit more, and we haven't hit our best yet, certainly in the tournament. And we'll need to do it this Saturday. We'll need to.
Youngsy, we've spoken about Anton Dupont. I know in a couple of weeks' time, hopefully you'll be up against him. How good is this lad? I mean, it's amazing to think that you're now. I always see you as a young lad, is what I'm trying to say. You're one of the elder statesmen in the England team, and potentially be up against someone like Anton Dupont. How good is this player? Because I watched him live against Scotland, and he looked unbelievable. In terms of where you see a player of that quality in the world at the minute,
he's exceptional, mate. He really is. I think certain players come along, and for me, Will Genia was one of the greatest nines, in my opinion. He came in, he changed the way that nines play, that way he tacked around the ruck, and I really studied him, and I really sort of was in awe of how he played the game. But I feel like Dupont's come in, and he's now taking the game to another level in terms of how nines play. But not just that, like it's the way he creates space. It's the way he's so compact and strong, mate. Like, you see some of the tackles he breaks, and you think he's got no right to do that. He's almost like a compact 12, that you'd use almost like for a crash ball, playing 9, but he's got all the subtleties, left foot, right foot, all the distribution and all that, but yet unbelievably powerful and abrasive at the same time. So he's quite a rightly so, World Player of the Year, and I think where this guy's end product is, I got no idea, but maybe when he really hits his peak, will be very, very scary, very, very scary.
No doubt you'll bang him out next week. So let's get the victory against Ireland, and then go over to France and take it as well, mate.
Right, Ben, we'll leave it there. Thank you very much for coming on the show, and best of luck this weekend at Twickenham.
Perfect. Thanks, pal.
Awesome,
really appreciate it. Top man.
Cheers,
really
lad. Take care. I'll see you soon.
Yeah, you too. Love to the family as well, mate. Top lad.
Top lad.
Yeah, he really is. Really is. 115 caps plus. Mate, he's a great guy, and I love how relaxed he is. He's not scared to tell the old sick in the bag story that you brought up last week, Jim. I love that about Youngsy. He's very down to earth. Obviously, phenomenal career so far. Still plenty of mileage left in it, but it is like he's still the young kid at Leicester, isn't it, Jim? That you used
That's
to go
the
around.
thing. I know. I suppose it is one of them. I'm not that old myself. I'm not 40 yet, but that's when I mentioned the DuPont thing. It's weird seeing DuPont as a young lad when I still see Youngsy as a young lad. And I also love how my association, so if anyone says Ben Youngs, will be like, I know him. Out. Threw his bag of sick out the window on the bus and went all over me.
I noticed though he told the truth about that story though. He said you wore all the sick, whereas last week when you told the story, you were like, it was over everyone but me.
He doesn't remember. I remember getting off the bus. The funny thing is, I remember
Ripping
getting off
shirts.
the bus and, well, we weren't that keen to rip shirts. We were just ripping curtains down. But in order to get off the bus, you needed both your back pockets ripped straight down to the floor. So most of us had decent jeans. If you had Levi's jeans on, you could barely do it, but you were dragging them out and your shirt needed to be ripped open. So
Is that when you wore the G-Stars?
They were the G-Stars, mate. They were the G-Stars, and I don't think we had any shoes on as we walked off, and the curtains had been ripped down, and the toilet had been that far kicked in by ABO that you could see the motorway as it was dragging. And I mean, idiots, but absolutely legendary.
And now you're all grown up and everyone's got kids, so let's not talk about it.
Exactly. Deny.
We've chatted about the game, so we'd better get your predictions in for the Guinness Match Pint Predictor as well. If you want to join in at home, it isn't too late. All you need to do is download the Match Pint app, join our league with the code RugbyPod, and get your predictions in to win free pints and other great prizes as well. Let's start off with France v Wales.
France by 4.
Really?
Yeah, I think Wales will play really well, and I think that it'll be close, hence the 4 points. But
Correct, James.
I know, but I think that this French team, having seen them live and looking at the way they're playing, unbeatable, unplayable. But I think that Wales will give them hell. If Scott Quinnell's there, definitely.
Yeah, I don't think any team's unbeatable, Jim, especially in rugby, but they're as close as France will ever get to being unbeatable. I'm going to go France by 8. A few more. I think Wales will go well, but France will just have too much class in the end.
All right, Gertie, you can go first for the next one. Italy v Scotland.
Mate, it's the wooden spoon decider, isn't it? You know, the classic Six Nations game that everyone looks forward to. Normally it's on the last weekend because everyone knows it'll be 5th v 6th and the wooden spoon battle. Historically, Jim Hamilton played in many of these games. I think
just give us a score. Just give us the bloody score.
I think Scotland have got a bit too much class. You know, we said it before. We talked about it. They shouldn't be troubled by this Italian team at the minute. Italy getting better. I'm going to go Scotland by 15.
Oh, I'll put Scotland by 13 and I'll stick with it.
And the big one to round out the weekend, England v Ireland.
Go on, Andrew, your team. Go on. You go
It's tough on this because your heart wants England to win. My head's saying Ireland are ridiculously good. I just think the Twickenham factor and the fact that I'll have had that much Guinness and blackcurrant all week should just sway it towards England by 1 point. I'm going to go with Marcus Smith to nail the winner.
Genuinely?
Yeah, I've got to back England, haven't I? Come on, England. My head's probably saying Ireland by 6, but I'm going to go England by 1.
I'll go Ireland by 6 then.
You mug.
Thanks, Gertie. Thanks, Jim. Thanks, producer Tristan. And thank you very much for listening. Don't forget to check us out on YouTube and make sure you've subscribed on Spotify.
Rugby Spot.
Spotted pod.